Today I am really excited to share with you guys this video where we use the Windsurf IDE to generate a 2D pixelated version of the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, where you're going to run around as a dog, bark, attack enemies, all that cool stuff. Um, and this isn't just going to be some single file mess. We're going to actually try to create some good quality, clean code that other people could use if we wanted to actually expand on this in the future. Now, I had never built a game before. I knew nothing about video game development, and still Windsurf was able to get me through it. So I really think that speaks a lot to how great of a piece of software it is. Um, yeah, well, that's enough for the introduction, so stick around and let's see how it went. Okay, here comes the title sequence. Okay, these are the three prompts we're going to be using to develop our game. Now, we're not going to be doing a single file game like you may have seen. We're actually going to try for something that's a little bit more professional. All right, now it's time for the real star of the show, Windsurf, the IDE. Now, for those of you who are maybe like, what the heck is Windsurf? It is the IDE that wasn't purchased by Google during that big whole anti-gravity scandal that I talked about in my other video. Um, so Windsurf, if you want to follow along, it's available free to download for Windows, Mac, Linux, whatever. It's based on VS Code, so you'll feel right at home. We used a free tier for this video and didn't hit a token limit at all, so that was pretty great. Shout out to them for being generous. Though if you plan on going absolutely token crazy, they do have paid tiers, $15 or $30. Ever since I played Twilight Princess on the Wii, I have always thought that playing a game as a dog was such a cool idea, and so I would be lying if I said that that wasn't some of the inspiration for what we're about to build. All right, cold open's done, titles are out of the way, now we're actually getting some stuff done. We've got Windsurf fired up, project ready to go, and today we're going to build this retro dog RPG in just 3 easy prompts using Phaser 3. Now that the setup's done, here we're going to get underway with prompt 1. Initializing a fresh Vite plus TypeScript project, stripping out all the boilerplate junk, and getting it set up with the basic game config. We want canvas, arcade physics with no gravity, a couple empty scenes, some scaling, and so Windsurf's really doing its thing here. We're hoping to end up with a black screen with some white text letting us know that we've got a basic environment. Here early on, I started to run into some issues where I wanted Windsurf to automatically apply the edits, and it wants me to occasionally copy and paste the edits, sometimes replacing functions, adding to functions, and that was the real thing I struggled with. And here you can see that we get the basic environment, and now that we've got that, we're going to get ready to get started on prompt number 2. And this is where we're going to try to add the player and actually get some movement and make this thing look like a real game. And then right away, the biggest issue is going to be the pixel art assets. I spent way too long hunting down the perfect retro dog sprite. There are a million sites. Some are top-down, some side-scroller, some roguelike grids. Do I want 16 by 16, 32 by 32? Yeah, so I was just way in over my head, and I feel like that didn't help this either. When Windsurf really struggles to get the character sprite loaded. I wish I would have spent more time getting my assets together or figuring out how to use the assets in Phaser. That was part Windsurf struggling to get the code correct here to get the sprite to load, and part me, I didn't even really understand it much better. So we really struggle with this. I had already spent way too long trying to generate my own sprite, and that didn't go very well either. So if you have some advice, maybe leave me some comments on places I could look to get better at understanding sprites. I mean, itch.io, and that was just
there's so much going on. Here's my rant for this video. I remember 3D printing back in 2015. Everyone was hyped. This is going to replace manufacturing. No, it wasn't. But not with random spaghetti supports and jam nozzles. But for prototyping, absolute game changer. You could iterate a physical part in hours instead of weeks, test fits, how it feels in your hand, spot problems instantly. Same exact deal with vibe coding. Nobody's shipping AAA titles or banking apps written purely by AI prompts. Nobody's saying anyways. It's not a factory. It's a 3D printer for software. You throw together a rough prototype super fast, play it, realize, oh wait, walking around barking is boring. So then let's pivot to moles and geysers and sheep herding ideas in the same afternoon. That kind of rapid iteration used to take days or weeks of manual coding. So when people trash vibe coding or say it'll never be real development, I think those are just the same folks who thought 3D printers were supposed to replace injection molding. They just are missing the point. Vibe coding isn't here to replace engineers. It's just the 3D printer of software. Messy, sometimes frustrating, but unbeatable for prototyping and exploring new ideas. All right, rant over. Okay, so here we're still working back and forth with Windsurf, trying to get it to load the user sprite for the player so we can see the dog. We have this little development environment with the grid where we should see the sprite, but we don't. And I'm working back and forth with Windsurf, hey, this isn't working, fix it, whatever. We keep iterating. And this is the only point in the whole project where I had to eventually just stop using vibe coding and I just let AI Jesus take the wheel. And we're back. So what happened off screen there was Cursor came in and cleaned some stuff up and got our sprite working. And now you can see we have the dog. He runs around. He can dig. He can bark. He's animated in 4 directions. I didn't realize I needed 8 directions, however, in my sprite sheet. But for right now, that works and it's good enough. And that's pretty much going to conclude the end of prompt 2. And now we're going to get started on prompt 3. Okay, so movement works, but let's be honest, it's boring as hell right now. Just a dog wandering infinite grass, barking at nothing. Games live or die on fun, not graphics. Old NES titles are still played today because they're addictive. So prompt 3, the power-up prompt, is where we turn this idea into a real RPG. UI overlay with health and stamina bars, a zoomed-out mini-map, collectible power-ups that refill stamina, and there was supposed to be a main menu with a dog selector, but we actually never get to that. You can see we've got the stamina and the power-ups working. The power-ups are just those little black dots. They don't have their texture loaded right now, but they're at least there and they're working. Next up, to try to fix all these issues. I was just so pleased with getting these power-ups working that I spend a little bit of time running around and testing everything out. Now we're going to get back to really trying to make these power-ups look good and add a little bit more functionality. There you can see we've got the texture working, but now they're giant. Just these massive power-ups that are 3 times the size of the player. So that was still fun. It was still like an interesting thing. This is where Windsurf really starts to shine, when you can do all these different iterations and play around with all these different things so quickly. Once we've got a little bit of a code base down for it to work through, I think it really started to speed up how fast we were able to get through problems. So pretty quickly, I also started to realize how lame everything is. There's just not a whole lot going on in this game. We do get the barking right here to barking moves power-ups. That became kind of an interesting thing. And then I also added the moles. When you dig, a mole can randomly spawn. They're those little brown pixelated things. They totally look like a real mole. And that was another idea that kind of came out of iterating through things. It was actually a suggestion from Gemini after saying, hey, my game isn't very fun. What else could I add? And so we ended up adding a few different things. If you dig, you can spawn a geyser, you can spawn a mole, or you can spawn more power-ups. And you can see it starts to become a little bit fun. You sort of dig up stuff, and then they come out of the ground and attack you, and it goes back and forth. The mole, then you can bark at it 3 times, and it dies or gets destroyed or whatever. And I think one of the other interesting things is when you bark, you can move power-ups, and kind of became an interesting mechanic where in the future I thought it would be cool if you were like a sheepdog and you barked and you sort of had to corral sheep maybe through an area. Yeah, it was just a fun little mechanic with the game that I kind of discovered by accident. Um, and now here we're also going to add in the score so we can have points and record our high score. I mean, what's a game if you can't win it? And that's pretty much the last feature that we add. And then here's just some gameplay footage of the final result at regular speed. You know, you're just running around, digging, barking. It's a dog's life. Overall, I had a whole lot of fun making this, and I think it turned out all right. Feature I have to call out at the end here is Deep Wiki. It's built right into Windsurf. Hover over any function or class and boom, instant plain English explanation of what it does. When you have AI building you a bunch of random code, this is so helpful. I loved it. And I really hope that it grows and continues to expand as a feature because it was awesome. All right, so verdict on Windsurf, easily, well, not easily, but it's a solid 7 out of 10. And on my scorecard, that's actually really good. The verdict is familiar. You know VS Code, you know it. That intuitive UI is pretty great. No stupid daily token caps like anti-gravity. If you watch my other video, I hit the limit after the first page was made. I never ran out of juice on the free tier with this, even building a whole game. Obviously, the Deep Wiki plugin I talked about, that is a standout. It's unique. I had never seen it before, and genuinely useful. Beyond useful for AI vibe coding. That kind of thing just really wouldn't exist with doing regular code, but I feel like with vibe coding, it really pairs nicely with it. Also, iteration. Once I got the basic game going, I was able to iterate through things pretty fast. Windsurf's very responsive, very quick. I was able to try out new ideas as they came to my mind. You know, there was really no friction there to try out new ideas. The bad, and this one almost dropped it to a 6 out of 10 for me. The constant, here's the code, now copy and paste this function or part of this function into this file or create this file. All that is just error prone. It induces complexity. It's not a great way to develop. Nobody wants to be going line by line, copying, pasting. If you're not confident about the code, don't just give me some random code that you think might work if I copy and pasted it. That is honestly pretty messed up and terrible. But that I don't know what else to say. That's, I guess, how it's supposed to work. And it did work. I was able to build the game, as you saw. So, I mean, it works. It wasn't the best experience. It's certainly not how I would want to develop a large project. I don't know, maybe they will change that in the future or fix it or whatever, but it definitely, it was frustrating. I got a little frustrated. So yeah, overall though, Windsurf is a great product, especially for prototyping or building, your next big idea. It is great for that. If you're prototyping games, highly recommend it. All the code assets for everything that I built are going to be linked below. It's all on GitHub. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button. Leave a comment if you can tell me more about sprites or what I did wrong, or if you just have some thoughts about the video. I really worked hard on making the editing for this video a little bit more interesting, so I hope that you guys like this new format. Yeah. If you want to see me make a game with
a dog who herds sheep, let me know in the comments. Thanks. I'll see you in the next one.